Hi, I'm Will Cedric.
Hey, I'm Ed Hoppitt.
And this is Inside the Bot. Ed, hi.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm all right, yeah. So another week, another co-host.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No, it's great of you to come on. Thanks. So for anyone who's listening who doesn't have the luxury of knowing who I'm talking to, it is Ed Hoppitt of Team Storm, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been described as a luxury before. Yeah, so team captain of Team Storm. We entered Photon Storm into BattleBots Season 2 this year, which was an awesome experience. And we're also known for Storm 2 in Robot Wars, which is the current world champion from the TV series.
It's fair to say you've had a bit more success with Storm 2.
Yeah, Storm 2 to date has only ever lost one fight on TV. Photon Storm to date has also only ever lost one fight on TV.
Well, when you put it like that.
But unfortunately, it's also only had one fight on TV. So you win some, you lose some. But yeah, taking part was awesome fun, and I wouldn't change any of it.
I mean, Photon Storm, to be fair to it, lost to Minotaur, which is an absolute beast of a robot.
If we're honest, it wasn't the best draw in the world. We to be honest, we think the producers were trying to give us what they thought was a relatively easy draw by giving us something with a big flat lid that we could grab and get hold of easily. The problem was that the Minotaur guys, they were completely petrified about fighting us. It was bizarre. Everyone else was like, "Oh, you guys are so screwed. You're going down." And the Minotaur guys were like, "Shit, what do we do about this thing? We don't fight anything like this before." So they were putting every piece of top armour they had on, then taking bolts out of everything to try and get themselves back underway.
That was a good fight, actually. I mean, until they came just full on at you with full power and kind of destroyed your arm.
Yeah, well, what happened? I mean, really briefly, I'll talk through what happened in that. So yeah, the fight was going really well, and actually, if you look at the footage, we kind of looked more on top. They took some cosmetic stuff off the side, but that was never really an issue. And then we drove at them, and there was just this immense collision happened, and they caught the front right hand side of the robot, and what that did was it pushed the two bulkheads that hold the ram back in the robot, broke them free off their mounts, slammed those two bulkheads back into the two drive motors, immediately disintegrated the two drive motors, and I mean disintegrated. That force kept on going back through the robot, and the motors got shoved back into the battery box, which bent the battery box over. And so a hit that had taken out the front right of the robot, that also severed the hydraulics, that also forced the contactor that runs the pump to run the pump continuously, which also then made the robot piss all the hydraulic oil as it spun through the air out of the system through the hole that had now been created. It was just the funniest bit was when the ref comes up to us afterwards and goes, "I need you to show movement." And I think all three of us just turned round to him and looked at him with a kind of like, "Sorry? What?"
Yeah, I mean, that hit was so high energy. Like, that disc was spun up fully and you just came together. And yeah, something was going to get mullered, and unfortunately, it was Photon Storm.
Well, they said up to that point, that none of their hits had done anything, and the armor that the Photon Storm was built out of behaved brilliantly. I mean, even when they hit us and it ripped welds apart, every single panel of Armox was still flat. So it literally just exploded all the welds, and all the armor panels are fine. I mean, the robot's now reassembled and all back together again. And we just had to redo the welds. It was bizarre, but an incredible hit, and ultimately it made for some great TV.
Oh yeah, that was great. Do you think you'll be back in BattleBots?
Yeah, we'd be up for it. We chatted to Greg a few times about doing it. I think the biggest challenge for the foreign teams taking part, and to a certain degree, Minotaur probably suffered this too, is that I think we only had, if I remember rightly, we had about 6 weeks between getting the okay to take part in the show and when we had to ship the robots. And that's an incredibly short period of time to do anything. I mean, Photon Storm looks like Tiberius, and the silhouette is exactly the same. But so much, I mean, the chassis is completely rebuilt, every chassis piece is a new piece of material. The hydraulic system inside is basically the same RAM, but we've reworked all the hydraulics. And we were trying to do this at the same time as getting Storm 2 ready for Robot Wars.
Yeah, I guess. Do you feel like one of them ended up getting watered down a bit, or?
No, we tried not to compromise on either, to be honest. Storm 2, we were really proud of what we managed to do for the series of Robot Wars that's about to be filmed. We put a huge amount of investment into doing something that the fans would look at and go, "Oh wow, look, they've not just come back with the same old thing. They've really worked hard." And to a certain degree, I think other teams have fallen into that trap where they've come back and people have gone, "Well, it's just the same robot."
Naming no names.
Well, I'm saying nothing. But with Photon Storm, we knew it needed a total overhaul. It started off as Tiberius, and it's really funny. People have been really funny about that. They've gone, "Hey, that's just Tiberius," and we're like, "Well, we've kind of never said it wasn't." But it's been completely upgraded and rebuilt, and so it was tough. I wouldn't do it again. That's not to say that I would do BattleBots and Robot Wars again, but we would plan the build better. That was the issue. Building robots is partially engineering and it's partially a project management nightmare. And we could have managed it better in the build, so we were less constrained for time. But it was good fun. But
lessons learned.
Yes.
So on the subject of building robots, what's happening at the moment? What are you up to inside the shop?
We're pretty busy at the moment. We're just getting ready to go and do some press work. So obviously we're appearing on the BBC show Robot Wars in a few weeks' time. So we're just getting actually both the machines ready to go and do a press day next week in London, which will be pretty cool. We've got some publications coming to see us. And then the robots almost immediately after that are getting freighted back to the US. So Storm 2 and Photon Storm heading back to the US. We're off to go and do a show in Las Vegas, which is a huge, big annual IT conference for one of our sponsors called VM World. And, it's a chance to meet people, talk to them, show them the machines, and of course getting ready for what comes on the 14th of August when our show on the Robot Wars show airs. So loads happening.
Yeah, that's of course week 4 you're on.
Yes, so 4
with Gabe's robot as well, Sabretooth.
I know. Oh my god, Gabe must have spent so much time building that machine. It's gorgeous.
So news, I mean, there's not really been that much official news going on.
No. The BattleBots toys are out.
The BattleBots toys is big stuff. I mean, that is.
I mean, that's massively important to both, to both the teams and to BattleBots. Because obviously, the teams, they stand to cover some of the cost of their robots off, royalties they might get from the toys. So you can see all the teams. Like, I think they've got a vote going on at the moment for vote which one you want next, and for the teams that's massively important. But they look great. I mean, we saw some of them at filming of BattleBots. They had some of the Hexbug prototypes there, and they look brilliant. I have to say, they were so much better than the toys that were built for the Robot Wars series. They look way more engaging and interactive.
Oh yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. They do look super cool. And building Lego robots seems to be the thing as well. Everyone's trying to build a Lego version of everything.
I saw a Lego version of a 4-bar flipper on YouTube the other day. That was pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. We saw a Lego version of Photon Storm, but unfortunately it didn't really look anything like Photon Storm, which was a shame. But it's a difficult shape to make out of Lego, I guess. Storm 2 would have been easier because you could just use one brick.
Now, don't put yourself down.
Self-deprecation is the way forwards.
You got to find those slanted edged bricks as well.
I reckon you're right. That can extend the build time to as much as 15 or 20 seconds.
Exactly. And apart from that, build diaries are the big thing at the moment.
Yeah, it's really interesting because they seem to have started cropping up. People weren't doing them at the start, and I think once a few people start doing them, everyone piles in, which is great. And actually, we've got one of the best build diaries and backstories in the form of the Overhaul guys on this episode. And I don't know if listeners have gone and read what the guys have written, but the amount of detail that they've got in there about what happened, why it happened, what their thinking was just brilliant.
Shall we get on to the episode?
Yes, let's.
So, BattleBots Season 2, Episode 6, The good, the bot, and the ugly. The round of 32 concludes, is what they've called it. Do you know what I've called it?
Oh, God, what have you called it, Will?
I've called it Be Prepared.
Interesting.
A cryptic one.
Yes.
But I think we see two fights where the competitors were very much prepared.
Yes. And I think that what you're probably also seeing there is that as the week of filming goes on, competitors have more time to prepare. And what really struck us when we turned up at filming was in our heads, you turn up at filming with a working robot. At BattleBots, most people turned up with a not working robot and spent a lot of time working on it and building it. And so there was a DNA of doing lots of work and building during the week. And so it was great. People heading out to Home Depot and places like that, or Home Depot for our American listeners,
to pick up a rake.
To buy rakes. I mean, Photon Storm also had anti-drone technology, which was 2 pieces of thick piano wire that we were going to weld onto the cowl. So it basically drive around with those, sort of anti-bird, anti-pigeon spikes that you get on things.
Yeah.
We basically drive around with a pair of those wiggling around above the robot to stop anyone getting above us. So, we weren't going quite as aggressive as Will did with Hypershock to actually swat the drone, but we certainly didn't particularly want one hovering above us. Not when you're filled with hydraulic oil that we didn't really know if it was flammable or not, but we weren't going to hang around and find out.
You don't want to find out, yeah. So be prepared this episode. So fight 1.
Yeah,
we had Overhaul and Beta.
Two great teams. And what was really interesting was, having seen some of the previous fights, I know that the Beta team were really worried that they were going to score badly. Because Beta is kind of a precision weapon, and they only want to fire the axe when they choose is the right time to fire the axe, they were really worried that the BattleBots logic scoring system was going to count against them. That they'd be out driving, they'd be out strategizing the opponent, but because the axe wasn't in rapid fire machine gun mode, they could end up finding themselves really down on points.
I think they're very fortunate in that fight that they're against Overhaul, because Overhaul's not going to score that many points either, really.
No.
For actual damage.
No, there was really only one point at which Overhaul managed to get that top claw to get hold of Beta and really achieve anything. And if you go and read the build diary for Overhaul, which has the backstory, they actually admit that they said 18 seconds in, we realised this was a game of survival for us. Because we realised we couldn't get under the shell of Beta, we couldn't get the claw in, and we just spent the time, I think they described it as J-turning around the arena trying to avoid the axe. So,
yeah, I mean, they did quite a good job.
They did a very good job.
But then at a certain point, you're going to run into a wall, quite literally.
Eventually, you run out of wall or arena or talent. And in this case, they ran out of wall and ran out of arena. And it was just really like cat and mouse. They drove up against the side of the wall and Terahertz, there you go. Forgetting which robot I'm talking about. Beta just capitalised on it.
Yeah, I mean, he was very patient, John.
John's incredibly patient. I'd love to know whether Grant, sitting next to him, was being as equally patient, or whether he was just shouting "hit him" at the top of his voice. But it was a brilliant fight. Actually, quite a lot of damage done to Overhaul.
Oh yeah, once he got those hits off on the back panel.
Yeah, I mean, Beta looks like a fairly blunt axe, but actually it's got a really hard tip on that big plastic axe.
Yeah, you can see.
One of those hits was millimetres away from just going straight into a pack of lipos. Which would have been a very different instant end to that fight. In fact, right at the end, when John's rammed Overhaul into the corner of the arena, he's just pounding Overhaul to pieces. Brilliant work, and so great to see Beta carrying on. So much pain and trouble Beta's had in its past. I think if John hadn't managed to get it working this year, I think he was considering retiring, regardless of whether BattleBots would have had him back.
Yeah, I mean, imagine going over there after. So Terahertz, which I think was one of the shames of Robot Wars.
Yes, Terahertz was a very unfortunate dropout of Robot Wars, and he's the nicest guy you could ever meet. And we were on a pit bench just next to them, and we were both sharing tools and equipment and all sorts between us. It was even though we might meet later on, it was fantastic.
So, yeah, I mean, he just got those killing blows at the end with the hammer. Finally managed to get to the to the backside of Overhaul and knocked him out. And that was the fight, really.
Yeah, I mean, the knockout blow, I think, was they took out their battle switch, the on-off switch of the robot was the hit that finally killed them, I think. But there was a load of issues going on inside Overhaul. Overhaul had stripped its wheels bare, so Overhaul had never really had such a pushy fight before.
Yeah.
And they were trying new brushless motor designs, and they incinerated the rubber off their wheels, so Overhaul was only running on a couple of wheels. And the things that they refer to as pontoons, these bits that stick out on either side of the front of Overhaul, were almost getting in the way of them trying to get hold of Beta, rather than allowing them to grab hold of Beta. They were almost holding themselves too far away from it. So, fascinating fight, a worthy win for Beta.
I think Overhaul will be back.
Oh, definitely. And also, of course, my new favourite victory spin from Beta. That
got to mention that.
An internet sensation was going around. My only question to John is it's only counts if you can make it do that again.
Oh, I'm sure he practiced that move many a time. So on to fight 2.
Yeah, so this is Warrior Clan versus Hypershock.
And shall we hear from Will Bales?
Yes.
Will, get out from under the table. Come on. There you go. Yeah, go on, Will. Put that rake away.
Hey, Will.
Hello, Mr. Bales. How's it going?
I'm wonderful.
Yeah? A little bit tired?
A little bit tired.
Better celebrating last night, was there?
A bit in a daze.
So, you started BattleBots last season.
Yep.
And you took out your brother.
My brothers and my parents.
Yeah, how was that?
It was fun. Obviously, it sucked that we had to fight each other in the first round, because we were hoping that both robots would be in the tournament a little bit longer, and then maybe we could meet up and there would be this great, TV drama of the family feud.
So you did pretty well in season 1, right?
Did all right. We beat Mohawk and got into the tournament. We lost in the round of 16 to Bite Force. We were really close to beating Bite Force, but we let the magic smoke out of our motors.
I mean, if you're going to lose to anyone in season 1...
Right, yeah. So we felt a lot better once Bite Force, won the tournament, because then it makes us look better. But
yeah,
it was one of those things that, between season 1 and season 2 was driving us crazy, because we knew we could have won that fight. We were so close. But
how do you think you would have fared if you'd beaten Bite Force?
Thinking totally cockily, if we had survived through the Bite Force match, at the time, Overhaul was a pretty similar robot, so we think we could have taken on Overhaul. Ghost Raptor, I could imagine Ghost Raptor putting the de-icer on its side and using it against the drum, which would be pretty clever, and it would probably work. So it would be up to driving, and then we probably would have gotten destroyed by Tombstone.
You don't think your armor's up to Tombstone?
It wasn't last year, that's for sure. We actually had a grudge match. I say grudge match, but it was really like an exhibition match and armor testing against Ice Wave.
How did that go?
It was awful. It ripped right through the armor as if it wasn't there. Ripped a wheel off, and busted a bit of the carbon. For the most part, it held up, but it really showed that we needed better armor, for sure.
What massive changes are there for this year from your season 1 robot?
Basically, everything was rebuilt. There aren't many things that actually stayed. The things we focused on were the drivetrain, which we beefed up for 4 long amp flows, 2400s, which is twice what everyone says you need, but I wasn't going to leave that to chance. We changed the armor around, so instead of having thin titanium armor, completely surrounding the robot, we had a little bit thicker AR plate, so hardox, in strategic spots in the robot. And then we got the arms really working. We were supposed to have hydraulic arms in season 1, but we didn't. They just weren't done in time, so they were there, kind of flopping about. And this year we actually got them actuated.
You have 3 of you controlling it, right?
Yeah, so I'm driving the robot around. I'm main maneuverability with a pistol grip transmitter, like Gabe uses for Sabretooth. And Alex is controlling the weapon and some other little bits. And Tyler is controlling the arms and the rake.
Yeah. Now, Gabe, when he saw this, he went crazy. He was like, that is genius. Have 3 people do it.
There's no rule against it. You're allowed to have as many drivers as you want. I personally prefer the pistol grip transmitter. I grew up driving RC cars instead of a lot of people who grew up flying RC planes. So they're used to the 2 dual joystick transmitter, and I just feel like I can get better control out of a pistol grip because I can just pull the trigger and it goes dead straight if you tune it right.
Am I right in saying Ian Lewis kind of has that same sort of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I think that Warhead basically took the same approach this year because they had Ian driving. Simon, I guess, was on all the crazy actuation, and the third gentleman, I think, was solely in charge of fire.
Yeah, Van is their pyrotechnics guy.
Yeah, so Van was in charge of fire. Mohawk did a similar thing. A couple of robots actually did similar things. It's the whole goal is to get mental load off of the main driver.
And you can tell you have it. I mean, that first fight of yours, ultra violent. Yeah, you kind of at the same time you're going in, he's lifting it up, and then you get the drum onto it as well, and it's just they all. You can tell you're all working together, like 100% what's going on.
Yeah, and it allowed us to change tactics really quickly. Like we went into it thinking, all right, we're going to lift and hit the drum at the same time. But turns out that somewhat suspected that tactic meant that we picked up the back of our robot as well, kind of teetered forward. So so we changed tactics, 10 seconds, 15 seconds into the fight, and it seemed to work out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was disemboweled by the end, so that's generally a win. So let's talk about your fight.
Right.
In this episode.
So in the first fight, we had 2 separate arms. They were mirror images of each other. They were split down the center, and they had little Hardox armor plates on the front. So they acted as little itty-bitty wedges, and we could lift and self-right and do all the things. We had interchangeable pieces for the arms. And we knew actually going into the event that we wanted to have some sort of thing on a stick to swat down drones. That was somewhat planned. We were originally thinking a broom, and we were actually hoping to get a wooden broom with, the straw broom.
Oh, like a witch's broom.
Like a witch's broom. And then we'd let the drone set it on fire, then we'd hit him with it.
Oh, God.
But they said no organic material, so we said fine. And Tyler had the genius idea of a rake, which in hindsight was a far better tool.
No way, man. No way.
Well, I think
he's got that broom.
It would have been hilarious to watch, but I think that the rake did a really good job of actually grabbing on to the dragon and ripping it to the ground. So, so we had we put a double wide blade on the front attached to the left arm so that we could still, lift things. So we still had one of the arms on there with a double wide blade so we could still get under Warrior Clan and use them as a wedge.
Why did you go for a double wide one instead of just sticking with your
current one? I was scared that drifting around in circles and driving like a madman, that I would accidentally let them catch the corner of it, and so having a wider wedge meant that we would have a less likelihood of it getting ripped off, which it got ripped off anyway, but it worked for a little bit.
Yeah, so that was, they caught the corner of it.
Yeah, so they caught the corner of it and politely removed it for us.
Yeah. So that moment at the start where you smite that drone.
The drone smiting.
And that laugh as well. We hear that a lot this episode.
Going into it, So what we did was the rake had a wooden stick on it, and we weren't even allowed to use the wooden stick, so we had to go get an aluminum stick to replace it. And so we ended up with this 6-foot long aluminum stick with a rake on the end. And so when it was on the ground, the top of the rake was like 8 feet in the air.
Yeah.
And so it's so great. So it was just so ridiculous looking. In fact, in the pits, the rake would actually extend beyond the confines of our allocated pit. So we basically had to keep it sticking in the air the whole time, because otherwise people running by would get snagged by it. So the whole thing was just ridiculous to begin with. And then we get in there and we're like, wow, we're going up against Waiachis with a rake. Part of you is thinking, why on earth did we do this? This is really dumb. This is going to totally backfire. The rake's going to get in the way. We're going to wish we had the other arm. It's not going to work. The drone's just going to fly over it, and it's going to be a disaster. But then we decided, you know what? YOLO. We're going to do it anyway. And because we actually did have the other arm there just in case, like if we chickened out. But we went with it and, start the fight, and we're swinging the rake around.
Did you notice that the drone was hanging above, ready to be plucked out of the air, or was that?
Our tactic going into it was, I told Tyler, I'm not going to worry about the drone. Your job is to get the drone out of the sky. Keep the rake in the back, almost like a big old wing. And the second you think that you can hit the drone, whip it around and take it out. So that's exactly what Tyler did. He was patient, and the second that the drone was within striking range, he whipped that thing around and got it on the ground. It was perfect.
It was amazing. And then you went at it. You just destroyed that thing.
Yeah.
And it was like Warrior Clan was just sitting there looking at you like, what have you done?
Yeah.
You're killing my brother.
In hindsight, after watching this fight, I keep asking myself, why did Warrior Clan just sit there? And I think they were having some drive issues, so that kind of explains it. But yeah, they just let us have at it. It would have been a great opportunity for them to come at us and hit a wheel or something.
So you dispatched with that, and then you just put on like a driving masterclass, it seems.
Yeah. And the reason for having so many drive motors was to make sure that startup speed is as fast as possible. The pickup is as fast as possible. So we had a lot of torque. We could actually box rush in like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Assuming perfect friction and all that stuff that remember last time we were talking about the wishful thinking numbers.
Yeah.
But point being that we were better equipped than any other robot at the event to box rush. And as a side benefit, we were also capable of drifting around things in circles.
And that was an awesome part of this fight.
So it looks really good, but it also does us another favor in the sense that it means that we're going around them faster than they were actually turning. And the front end of our robot is actually pointed at Warrior Clan more so than if we were just actually driving in circles. So it's, in some very strange way, drifting is an offensive tactic.
You got around the back of them, and that was really it for them, because you kind of just opened them up a bit. If you hadn't had that speed and the ability to drift around the back of them and take them out, it would have been a very close fight, even with you taking out their drone, right?
Yeah, because it would have been really difficult to get around them, like you're saying. And we would just be stuck dealing with the front wedge, which you're not going to get under.
No. So that was an awesome fight. Who do you face next?
We face Poison Arrow next.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so they've got a drone. Are we going to see the return of the rake?
You bet. How could we not at this point?
Oh, I'm expecting another epic rake battle.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting fight. We'll have some different tactics going into it. Everyone saw their fight against Sanawayachi, and they were very impressive, well driven, well built robots.
Cheers for the cheeky interview.
Oh, not a problem. Thank you.
Do you have any sponsors?
Yeah. Friend of ours, Alan Schimmel, with Star Drive Industries, he helped us making an oven and doing lots of machining and welding for us. And then our sponsor, Zyvex Industries, gave us the carbon fiber and helped us figure out how to work with composites. This was the second time that any of us had really done any composites work, and without them we would have been lost in the dark for sure.
So thanks for coming on, Will. It's been great having you.
Thanks again for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hey, and good luck in your fight against Poison Arrow.
It should be interesting. We'll definitely have the rake.
I look forward to it, man.
Oh, it was brilliant. I mean, it was inspired innovation. It was up there with the box and the de-icer. But it had comedic value. What made it great was that it had true comedic value, because there was just something so random about a machine. I don't know how much Will spent on that, but there's probably, if you had to pay for it between those two machines, there's probably $100,000 worth of engineering time and materials in those two robots. And then the deciding factor is a rake from Home Depot. I mean, having said that, the damage that they did to Warrior Clan's main bot was also incredible.
The driving as well to get around that.
Yeah, and the damage to the top plate of Warrior Clan, which is really thick. I mean, it may look like they've peeled back a piece of tinfoil, but that damage they've done to the top of Warrior Clan was absolutely immense.
So yeah, thanks to Will for coming on and chatting about his fight.
Yeah, awesome to hear his thoughts.
And we can move on. We got Stinger and Megatento.
Yes, this was a really interesting one. I was actually in the audience watching this one play out.
Now Megatento, they've made some changes because they are my favourite sandpit-based trap and chew robot.
Yes.
However,
but I think they're pretty much the only one, aren't they?
Tentamushi.
Oh well, yes.
They're my favourite though, Megatento.
and Stinger for me is one of my favourite. Calling it a Rambot doesn't do it justice, but we fought Stinger with Storm 2 in Robo Games in San Francisco a few years ago, and they're an incredible competitor. And Matt and Wendy again, two of the nicest people you could ever meet. Put them behind the controls of a robot though, and they know how to drive. So for me, this was a shock. I was in the audience, and the assumption was Stinger will win this.
I mean, this is the team that took out Warhead last year.
Yeah. It was almost a foregone conclusion. They're built to deal with pretty much anything. They've got those interchangeable weapons. So Stingers set themselves up as they see it perfectly for this fight. And it was a big surprise when they lost it. Big surprise.
So changes to the robots. Stinger's got a tiny little mini bot that shoots fire.
Yes.
And Megatento is no longer trap and chew. It's a trap. And if you're not trapped, I can chew you, because the thing is behind the drum, little disc. I guess it's more of a disc than a drum. It's a weird fight, this one.
It is, and it could have gone either way in a way, because there was nothing concise ever happened. Nothing like really kind of like, oh, that was the moment, that was it, they won it on that. Not like swatting a drone out of the sky. So Stinger lost a wheel, but Stinger loses a wheel in most of his fights.
Yeah, it's got 6 of them.
Doesn't really seem to bother it. Both the robots were still looking good at the end of the fight. There have been a few odd BattleBots decisions where I think people have raised an eyebrow and gone, well, that's an interesting interpretation. I'm not saying this was one of them, but it was certainly an unexpected result and sort of kind of not in the script.
There's a lot of flames, and I don't know... I mean, how much damage does a flame do?
Not as much as I think people would like. In a way, I think it's a shame, because the flames look visually brilliant, but I don't think anyone's really worked out how to use them to full effect.
Complete Control, I'd say, had a good go.
Yeah, we looked at putting flames into Photon Storm. One of the ideas we had was, could we route a flame effectively down the claw so that as soon as we penetrated, we could inject flame inside a robot. Now, I think flames in an enclosed space, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
But flames, pointing at a 1/4-inch thick AR 400 panel is not going to do very much. But it looks great.
You would have gone for kind of like the Mohawk style, but with the flame coming out of the tip.
Yes, yeah. Imagine it. You could pierce a robot. You could fill them with flame.
Yeah.
And the worst case scenario, if the flame doesn't ignite, all you've done is fill them with gas, that's not a bad place to be either.
So the Stinger Megatento fight, coming back to it, I think you can only really look at the wheel coming off as the only real piece of damage.
Yeah.
And the Minibot got a bit screwed up.
Yeah, the Minibot wasn't in the best place in the world, and the wheel came off. So if you're purely basing it on damage, then Megatanto definitely wins. But I think that there were still people in the audience who raised an eyebrow. It was really sad to see Stinger go out at that point. But it was great to see the others go through. I mean, it's an amazing machine. And it's great to see any machine go through to the next round, but such a shame to see Stinger go out.
Yeah, I mean, it was a close one. They won on a judge's decision in the end, 2-1.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It could not have been closer.
Right. On to the fourth fight. Now.
Yeah.
Nightmare and Ice Wave.
So this was one that everyone in the pits wanted to watch. There were some fights that in the pits. There was interest, but it was, I have a spare moment, I'll go and watch that. This was one of the fights that everyone went to the TV screens we had at the end of the pits to go and watch.
When spinners collide, you want to be there.
Yeah. And boy, did they collide.
Yeah, they just had that massive hit at the start. Nightmare's spinner was broken. Ice Waves wasn't?
No, so they had a huge hit at the start, which twisted Nightmare's blade and actually damaged the Nightmare. The big thing for Nightmare this year was its ability to self-right, or rather reorient, because it doesn't really self-right. The wheels are supposed to swing up to allow it to drive the other way up.
Yeah.
And what happened apparently was the locking mechanism that held those wheels in place either got bent or stopped working, and the disc got bent. So the disc got bent, sheared one of the belts. That's fine because they have two belts, but then the frame was bent and the locking mechanism wasn't working properly, meaning that the disc was then banging on the floor, so they could never really get any speed into it.
Yeah, it kind of sagged a bit, didn't it?
But the weird thing was Ice Wave just seemed to be slowly suffering more and more as the fight went on, regardless of the fact that it looked like it was on top. And then right at the end, Ice Wave just stopped moving. And there were loads of people who went over and chatted to them afterwards in the pits, but they didn't really seem to know why it happened. But certainly, I think if Ice Wave hadn't immobilised itself, I think it would have gone on and won that fairly easily.
Yeah, it looks like it, definitely.
Yeah. But Nightmare was in a pretty bad way by the end of that. It took a lot of effort, and Jim was there until 2:00 in the morning, I think, stripped Nightmare bare down to the bare frame, and to put the whole thing back together again. Which is testament to the incredible amounts of activity that go into keeping these machines running.
I mean, all of the builders, just put in so much time and effort.
Well, us less so. We went and had a look around Los Angeles and took some days off. But
well, you were out of the competition, to be fair.
I know, yes. we would love to have been going till 2:00 in the morning to get into this stage, but wasn't to be for us.
No, a short fight, but a good one. I do like when spinners collide.
Yeah, I will shame to see Ice Wave go out. They were one of the standout machines from last year. And I think a lot of people had them tipped to go a long way. Visually, they looked very similar to last year, but I think there was a lot of work inside that had gone into changing and transforming, how that machine functioned and worked.
Just got to iron out those reliability issues.
Yeah.
On to fight 5.
Yeah, so this was Lockjaw versus Brutus.
It was. This is more of a sumo wrestling match than a BattleBots fight.
It was kind of. Lockjaw was obviously of the opinion of let's wedge up.
Yeah.
And the producers were really anti-wedge. They were really nervous, I think, that everyone was going to do a bite force from last season, and if anyone went up against something nasty, they'd rip the weapon out and just stick a big wedge on. And so that results in some of these sort of, like you said, more sumo than fighting.
Yeah, we saw flashes of good driving in this fight where they'd be having a little sumo contest and Brutus would kind of then reverse and try and spin out of it to get around the sides.
Yeah.
But there was no real damage on the face of things.
No, and Brutus was an amazing machine. I mean, you do not get a sense from watching on TV how small Brutus is.
Where is the weight in that robot then?
I think it's obviously a good slice of it's in the weapon, and I think the rest of it's in chassis structure. I didn't get a chance to have a good look inside it, but I'm pretty sure that if they were to do a pie chart of weight, that disc would come first, and then chassis structure would come second.
I wonder how much that disc weighs.
I don't know. By the looks of it, enough. That was always the requirement of how much a disc weighs. How much does it weigh? It weighs enough.
I'm just curious. We haven't really seen it in action yet.
Well, they didn't really get a chance, did they? Mobius self-destructed in spectacular style, and they couldn't have done it in a better fight because we were actually that was another one that we were sat in the audience for, and we were all so we saw the guns fire off the flashbangs in front of Brutus, but the next thing we saw was Mobius bouncing around, and we were like, they aren't actually firing something at Mobius, are they, that's caused it to lose balance? Because it all happened at the same time. Then at the same time, you had these explosions around the arena as their batteries started blowing up. And we were disoriented watching it, trying to work out what was going on. God knows how the Mobius team were trying to work out what the hell was happening. It was totally chaotic. But yeah, Brutus still at this point, I think, having a good run through the competition. So I mean that brings us on to another big spinner, Cobalt.
And, unexpectedly, another big spinner, Bombshell.
Bombshell. I mean, the Bombshell guys were brilliant. They were one of the stars of characters in the pits. And yeah, I love the team pieces. That's not to say that the Cobalt guys aren't great. And yeah, they're a brilliant bunch. Sam, of course, from the Cobalt team, originally built Tiberius, which we then reincarnated as Photon Storm. So that would have been fantastic if we'd ended up meeting with each other. Poor old Sam wouldn't have known which robot to root for.
He couldn't have lost, though.
Well, I mean, on the plus side, yeah, whatever happened, Sam's engineering was gonna win. But Cobalt versus Bombshell was fascinating.
This was a genius match, a stroke of genius by Bombshell.
Well, it was a stroke of genius that led to a total fluke. So, firstly, I have to call something out, which is you cannot underestimate how much work Dave and Sam did to get Cobalt back in the arena. They were having immense problems with the E-Tech that runs their main weapon, and I think they replaced the old style E-Tech with a new style E-Tech, which meant cutting holes in the chassis, replacing pieces of armor. They did an immense amount of work to get Cobalt back in the arena and running. Hats off to them. It was amazing watching them do it, and the level of attention to detail that they took to not bodge it and do it properly was really, really impressive. So it was great to see them back in the arena at full strength and working. Bombshell were too busy measuring Cobalt to work out what they should do and what weapon they should put on.
Yeah.
Cobalt has this great range of weapons, which is something we kind of always try to pioneer in Storm 2, which is actually you configure yourself for the fight rather than hoping you build one robot that does everything and deals with everyone, because that's unrealistic to think that you could ever really do that.
And I guess that was part of them being prepared.
Yeah.
With their Swiss Army bot.
They were very prepared. So what's really interesting was Bombshell had measured up and positioned that spinning bar to the correct height to take out Cobalt's chain. So let me be clear, they weren't after the wheels; they were after the chain.
So the chain sits just above the spinner.
Just above the spinner at the front. So top and front is where the chain that goes back to the motor sits. So they positioned it correctly. They moved it far enough forward so that they could get the chain, but the spinning bar of Cobalt couldn't reach the body of Bombshell. Mm-hmm. So they worked all this out. All the geometry had been done beforehand. All they had to do was they had to let Cobalt drive towards them. They'd have taken the chain off. Cobalt's weapon would have been immobilized, and it would have been game over. So what the Cobalt guys, their plan, from what I understand, is they were going to try and drive the back of the robot of Cobalt into Bombshell, stop that weapon straight away, then spin round and, for want of a better word, twat them. So the reason that you never really saw Cobalt try and just, sod it, let's just go, this is not going well, we just have to try something else, I think was because they were focused on plan A, which was a good plan. Had it not been for the fact that their tyres were, like a quadrant at a time getting cut off.
Yeah, a fascinating fight. And I don't use the word fascinating very often.
It was brilliant. It was great to watch. I mean, it was painful to watch as well, because you could see Cobalt was sort of slowly getting more and more immobilised, and you sort of realised that if they take one more bit of tyre off, it's going to be game over.
I'll tell you it must be really painful for Dave Moulds and Sam Smith. At the end of this fight, Cobalt gets knocked about, and its spinner hits the wheel on Bombshell and just shatters it.
I know, and that kind of was what we were all willing them to do, which was stop going arse end in, guys. It's not working. Go and hit them. You can break them.
It makes you realise, oh crap, we could have just destroyed them. It was a big time commiserations to Cobalt. I think they were unlucky to lose out there. On to fight 7.
Ah, yes. So this is Bite Force and Ringmaster.
It is.
And I have to say, Ringmaster, one of the most unbelievably beautifully engineered machines I have ever come across in my life. And Hal, the guy who built it, he was so passionate. He was happy to show anyone, talk to anyone. There were people queuing up. So he had this central chassis that was all machined up from magnesium, and you may have seen it on his build diary. But he's got a whole second one as well. And there are people just queuing up to pick this thing up and hold it and go, how can that weigh so little? Hal was brilliant, and his daughter was a phenomenal driver, getting to grips with a relatively complicated machine to drive.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it kind of never really delivered the potential on paper in the arena.
No, they seem to have some issues driving the thing.
It was a very complex drive system. If you look at the way the wheels are angled, they're kind of like 120 degrees from each other.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a clear forwards, backwards, left and right. And they kind of struggled with that a little bit. And here with Bite Force, they got one really solid hit on that outer ring early on in this fight. And the ring was completely bent. There was no way it was going to spin anymore. And at that point, obviously, Bite Force, they then lost their weapon. I think you see a sort of puff of smoke, and I think they lost the drive motor for the weapon.
Yeah.
But by that point, the damage was already done. Bite Force was now so drivable, so manoeuvrable, and so agile that with the main weapon removed of Ringmaster, who to a certain degree, when the weapon's running, it doesn't matter how drivable it is, no one wants to hear it. But as soon as the weapon's immobilised and it's just driver versus driver, Bite Force were always going to have this.
Yeah, I mean, it is that complicated drive system on Ringmaster. Do you think they'll change that when they come back?
It will be interesting to see if they come back with a more sort of XY translational drive system of forwards, backwards, left and right. Because for me, that was what let them down. It was beautifully innovative, and innovation is the way forwards in this. Doing things differently and seeing if it works. And I mean, there's some stuff that I can't really talk about that we're investing some of our R&D money into with Storm 2 about, can we do something really different? And people will see if that works or doesn't work. Later on, but to see someone like Hal invest so much time and effort and passion in something that was so innovative was brilliant. And it always doesn't matter if it doesn't work.
Yeah,
the fact is that you went there and you did it and you tried it. Who cares if it doesn't work, as long as you have fun doing it and you make some great television.
Yeah. So on to the final fight.
Yes, Chomp versus Captain Shredderator.
Where do we start?
This was a really interesting matchup. Right from the point at which you realised this was going to be the fight. A big flat-topped spinner versus a spinner skewering machine. Chomp, such a unique machine. There is so much engineering. Some people might say too much engineering in Chomp, but the fact that it's still going says that the engineering that's in there is there for a reason.
Yeah,
It looks incredibly complicated, but it's clearly doing the business, or it's not fluke that it's got this far through the competition. But I think a lot of people thought that it could be game over for Chomp in this fight versus Shredderator.
I think they underestimate the side armour.
I think a lot of people underestimated the side armour, and I think a lot of people underestimated the way that the scoring system works, in that you don't really seem to score negative points for rolling around on the floor, flailing around. That doesn't really seem to count against you, which Chomp does spend quite a lot of its time doing.
It does.
One of the problems that they had was that although we were all told that the BattleBots floor was going to be steel, they then coated it in a layer of rubber. So you had a steel base with this like super rubbery, grippy paint on the top. So Chomp, and I could be wrong, but I think Chomp had a set of magnets that were supposed to hold it in place when it fired the weapon.
Yeah.
But they were really struggling to get that to work because of this layer of paint that was on top of the arena that was effectively holding them too far away from it to get good purchase of the magnets. So they were flailing around a lot more, but the judges were clearly focusing more on when they got a hit than perhaps 20 seconds of flailing. And I think Ringmaster's letdown was that they couldn't capitalise on the flailing. When Chomp was on its side and Ringmaster had a chance, not Ringmaster, Shredderator, Shredderator had a chance to go in for the soft underbelly, they just kind of never got the chance to capitalise on that.
It kind of showed that Shredderator was not the strongest of full body spinners.
Yeah, because they kept sort of almost like stopping from it, like they were stopping for a break. I mean, I know that full body spinner, you want to get it spun up before you go and hit someone, but Shredderator didn't look happy towards the second bit of the fight. They were clearly not working as designed. Chomp was clearly doing much better.
But they left themselves open on a fair few occasions.
Yeah, well, what was really funny was Shredderator kept stopping. And then it was almost like Chomp would hit them and Shredderator would start working again.
Yeah, what do you think was wrong with Shredderator? Is that...
I don't know. I don't know what happened, but I do know that I was thinking, for God's sake, Chomp, stop hitting them. Every time you hit them, they turn back on. Just let them be dead.
I don't know if that was just coincidence that it was when they hit them, though.
Well, you don't know, but it did happen a few times. It was more than once that when they hit them, Shredderator seemed to spring back into life again.
In the Warhead fight against Complete Control, they lost their spinner momentarily, didn't they?
Yes, that's true.
And that was due to their ESC tripping.
Yeah, a lot of these machines now using brushless to drive the weapon systems, and there's a lot more complexity in how they work, how they spin up, how they activate than just slamming a load of volts across a set of brushes in a traditional motor. So it's possible, though Shredderator was losing everything. The lights were going off. It was losing drive. So I don't really know what was happening. The interesting thing about Chomp, though, is you'll notice one thing it does at the start of every fight, and I can't remember whether they showed this on the footage, is Chomp will drive halfway out across the arena and then reverse back again before the fight starts. And that's actually in calibrating their auto-fire range-finding system. It's taking Chomp across the arena to see if Chomp can get a lock on the opposing robot. And that was something they were doing at the start of every fight. Quite interesting to see them setting up and calibrating the robots. Not often you see a robot being calibrated for its fight.
Yeah, I don't know that the auto system is that great.
Again, I think it's one of those innovation things. The concept may not work this time. It may not have been brilliant on this occasion. But I think that people will look at that and they will think it through. I mean, on Storm 2, we have live telemetry that comes back from the robot. So, for example, if we're running a spinner weapon, which is designed to run at 24 volts, if we get data back that says that the motor's really cool, it's not overheating, you've got loads of headroom in the system here, we can give it the full 42 volts that Storm 2 can deliver. And we can make those decisions based on what we know about what the robot's doing. So stuff that sounds like a gimmick. And again, you could say that the auto-targeting of Chomp was a gimmick. But I think as teams get to grips with how it can be used better, I think it will become a powerful addition to a team.
So I think we've covered that episode.
No, that was. It's good to just sit down and chew the fat on an episode and talk it through. And being there and seeing it all was incredible. Watching it back on TV sort of brings back all the memories of filming. There's things you just don't get. You don't get the fact that it was like 35 degrees centigrade in the pits.
Yeah.
It just doesn't come across. Funnily enough, if you watch Robot Wars, it does come across that it was about -3 in the pits. Because we're watching the show in the middle of summer and everyone is wrapped up for winter.
Yeah, I mean, the second week was a bit warmer.
Only slightly. It moved from -2 to about +8. We'll have to do some conversions for our American friends.
Nah, they'll work it out.
Just Google's for.
Exactly. We've got some questions.
Have we?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of questions. Someone tweeted at me, said, because I always go on about how Americans have exposed wheels. And then Cobalt got its wheels destroyed, and it doesn't have exposed wheels. So I need to address what happened there.
What happened in terms of why did they get the wheels chopped off?
Just how could they have mitigated that?
I don't think there's any way Cobalt could have mitigated what happened unless they changed their game plan. They ended up in the unfortunate situation where the spinning bit of someone else perfectly lined up with a soft, squishy bit of their machine. And I dare say I could go and point to almost any machine and find a soft, squishy bit. Cobalt got very unlucky.
Yeah.
It is interesting that the US teams like the exposed wheels. I don't really understand the logic behind it. They've got a flat arena. They don't really have any hazards. They've got the kill saws and they've got the little spiky things that stick up. But it's not like it's an uneven floor. It's not like you want big exposed chunky tyres so you can go and climb over things. I think it's just the DNA. It's just the evolution has led them there. And in a way, the family trees of US and European robots separated very, very early on, and they've gone two different ways. And the exposed moving components is something that don't think of it as exposed wheels. Think of it sometimes as exposed moving components are much more prevalent on the US machines. Sometimes when you watch the UK robots, they look a bit boring because they just sort of they're like a Dalek. They just kind of hover their way around.
Yeah, just completely covered.
Yeah, nothing moves. You can't see anything happening, and then there's this split second kabam when a flipper fires, and then they go back to sort of hovering their way around the arena. So I don't know. I think the exposed wheels and the exposed mechanics looks better. But hey, what can I say? I run Storm 2, which is a armoured black box with a little lifter that pops out the top. So.
Oh, and a disc.
Well, and a disc, yeah. And one of the things we tried with the disc was to make it look visually appealing, as opposed to just getting a solid water cut piece of Hardox and sticks and bearings on it.
Yeah.
We made a conscious decision that we were going to make that out of aluminium and make it look visually good, and it worked. We ended up as one of the poster trailers for Robot Wars, so we were really pleased about that.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff. You'll be on in a few weeks.
Yeah,
a couple of weeks, I guess. Yeah.
So we're on the we'll be 2 weeks time.
Cool. And another thing we have to address before we wrap up is the bot damage rules.
Yeah,
which is active weapon damage.
A hashtag BB Logic, I think, is floating around.
Now,
it is an interesting one.
And I caught up with Greg a while ago, and we spoke about this briefly, and it didn't make it into the podcast we did when we had Greg on.
Yeah.
But luckily, he's still hanging around under the table, waiting to come out and talk about it. So, Greg, come on. Or Greg. He's going to come and talk. Here you are, Greg.
In Season 1, Bite Force won, and it was basically just a pushing match with Tombstone, and Bite Force had this grappler and never used it. I mean, he used it once or twice, but he didn't constantly use it. He just wedged. And that's not the kind of fights we want to see. And we don't want to see Ghost Raptor, wedging people. We want to see their blade spin and actually use it. So those were the two kind of bummers, I would say, from Season 1. And we wanted to fix it. So we redefined aggression as frequently, boldly, I forget the other two words, but they're in the documents, using your active weapon.
Okay.
And the problem is when you see a fight like Sawblaze versus Razorback, you see Sawblaze completely outdriving Razorback, which is control. That's the control part of the judge's decision. But the aggression part of the judge's decision is really based on how frequently and boldly and severely and intentfully, those are the words now, you used that active weapon against your opponent. And Sawblaze barely, once, used the active weapon, and the rest of the time he used the wedge. So, but you know what? The problem, though, is with the word aggression. We've been using that word since 1994.
Yeah. And
we should change that word, because in the minds of the general public watching the show, if you see Sawblaze outdriving Razorback, you're going to say he's more aggressive, and that's perfectly logical. And you're not going to download the PDF and read the rule book. So we need to change that name to active weapon use. So the judges' criteria for Season 3 will probably be something like damage, control, strategy, and active weapon use. We will probably no longer use the term aggression.
Am I right in thinking the builders weren't really aware of what the rules were?
No, I mean they were published in the tournament rules.
Okay.
Everyone received a copy of them. I sent out numerous emails that they were up and being updated, and they all had to sign them at the tournament. But they're so busy.
They just haven't really read them.
Have a chance to read it, and where the fault lies with me is I should have just sent a separate email to everyone, because during the pre-production I'm emailing the builders all the time. We're in constant communication, and it's shame on me for not sending a specific email saying, hey everybody, the judges' criteria is going to change, be aware, you've got to use your active weapon. I never did that, and so Jameson is correct in complaining about that, although the text was there available for everybody.
Okay.
And we recently modified it, like during the competition we modified it so it was even more explicit. Yeah, and again, yeah, so I've learned the lesson to definitely, if there's major changes, I'm not going to rely on the builders having time to read through a bunch of minutia. I'm just going to tell them.
Yeah,
and usually I do that, but I'm busy too, so it's just
it's just a crazy run up to the show. It sounds like
one of these things. Yeah, exactly.
I think when you make a major change to a set of rules that people have set in their head, and you make that major change effectively after people have built the robots, people are sometimes not paying as much attention as they might be, I guess.
Yeah.
There were a number of fights where like I said earlier, eyebrows were raised, and I think there were a number of fights where that new rule probably resulted in a robot winning that wasn't anticipated to win.
Yeah.
And it's quite complex to explain that to the audience. So one of the biggest honours that I have in my life is I get to commentate on live events that happen in the UK, these live touring shows. And one of the things that I always make the point about is it's got to be really simple for the audience. If you have to explain a rule, that rule was too complicated. So I do think that there's a challenge that BattleBots have got, that they're clearly trying to drive the development of the sport in a certain direction. They're trying to drive it into the high energy, high destruction, lots of sparks, lots of bits flying around. The unintended consequences of that can be that the rule system becomes quite complicated. People want to understand who's won a fight in their own heads. They don't want someone to have to come back and explain it afterwards, or to go and look up the rules to try and figure out what happened. We had a situation in the UK where we have a pit. So the robot falls down the pit in the Robot Wars story. Then the robot is dead and it's out. In the live tours, the pit wasn't quite as deep, which meant people could get back out again. So the Roboteers were saying, well, this is a challenge. We want the ability to get back out of the pit, and if we get out of the pit, we should be allowed to carry on. But from the audience's perspective, they're all up on their feet cheering the moment someone goes down. Then they're very confused when they're allowed to get back out. And then they're even more confused when that robot then wins, because they're all sitting there going, well, hang on, the rules as I understand it say that when you're in the pit, you're out. So it's difficult changing rules that have fundamental changes to the outcomes of fights.
And Greg mentions, they use that word aggression, which is very open-ended, and what they should call it is active weapon damage.
Yes, yeah, and I think that was one of the big points, is that you had robots that lost their weapon early on, but clearly dominated the whole fight, and at the end, to any person looking on, clearly looked like they'd won, but then suddenly they'd have lost, and they'd lost because but they didn't have a weapon for 2.5 minutes of that fight. So as far as we're concerned, they can't score any points for 2.5 minutes of that fight almost, when actually they were clearly in control. And this was the issue that Beta had, was they were really worried that the only time they were going to score points was when they hit someone. They weren't going to score points for getting to the right place, or manoeuvring into the right place, or driving tactically and strategically. And Beta may only have chosen to fire its weapon a few times, but as long as they're the right few times, that shouldn't count against them. That's driving the robot as the robot's designed to be driven. We had a similar issue with Photon Storm, was that we had the pinning rules clarified to us beforehand.
Yeah.
But it turned out that pinning to the UK teams meant something different to the US guys. And so we thought we had 30 seconds to grapple with Minotaur, because they'd said you have to release after 30 seconds. But what they meant was if you're lockjaw and you've got someone in your jaws and you're driving them around the arena, slamming them into the walls, then you've got to let go of them after 30 seconds. But because we're effectively a static weapons platform, because we weren't moving, they said we had to release after 10 seconds, so we didn't get that chance to go back in again.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, rules get complex.
Yeah.
And they can have changes to them, can have unintended consequences.
Well, I think we've addressed that. I think it's just communicating it to every party, the audience, the roboteer, and even the commentators as well.
Yeah.
Definitely needed to talk about it a bit more.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. The one thing I will say about the BattleBots team and the production crew is they were happy to learn and adapt.
Yeah.
So they took feedback, they amended things. It certainly was no sort of them and us mentality. I don't think anyone got frustrated. People were just like, oh, I hadn't realised it was going to work like that. Oh, okay, all right, we'll have to go and rethink.
I think there'll be some changes for season 3, or clarifications.
Yeah, I think there'll be some evolution of what happened for season 3. Fingers crossed we get season 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably easier if we just don't get into all that. Let's talk about the show.
It all gets too complex.
Yeah, definitely. If you have any questions or comments, you can get in touch with us via our Facebook or Twitter. You can email insidethebot@gmail.com as well. Questions about BattleBots or Robot Wars, anything you've heard in this episode, and I'm sure we'll answer them next time. So it's thank you for listening, and thank you, Ed, for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an honour to be asked, and thanks everyone for putting up with my ramblings for God knows how long.
No, you've given us some great insights into
Appreciate
it. What was going on behind the scenes at BattleBots.
Happy to talk anytime, and yeah, I'll leave you with this. Never before have I felt more humble than sitting in that pit space with those guys making that TV show. It was incredible.
Yeah, I bet. Do you have any sponsors you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, we have a main sponsor, a company called VMware. They're a IT company. They've been fantastic. Their strapline is #Fearless Innovators. It just seemed like the right tie up and watch this space for another tech household name coming our way, who we're equally as passionate and excited about the prospect to work with.
That is exciting. Always good to hear new sponsors because it means things are going well.
It is, and we're lucky that we've got sponsors. I don't think it's out of reach of any team to not get them and make them work for the team.
You just have to put that effort.
You have to think it through. You have to think what you've got to offer, which is often not just we're on the telly.
Yeah.
And you have to make them an offer that they can't refuse. And it's not hard.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Ed.
Thanks very much.
And thanks for listening, everyone. I've been Will Sedgwick.
And I've been Ed Hoppitt.
And this has been Inside the Bot.